All right, today we are diving deep. We're going to follow the incredible journey of a single ovum, that's an egg, through the entire menstrual cycle. It is a wild ride, so let's get into it. It happens every single month. But have you ever stopped to think about what's really going on under the surface? It's this incredible story of perfect timing, powerful hormones, and constant change. So yeah, what is actually happening in there every 28 days or so? Okay, so at the very heart of all this is what you could call a hormonal symphony. Seriously. And this graph? That's basically our sheet music. Just look at how these four key hormones, that's FSH, LH, estrogen, and progesterone, how they rise and fall in this perfectly coordinated dance. This pattern right here is what dictates every single thing that's about to happen. And if that was the music, then this is our stage. Our whole story kicks off in the ovaries. Then it travels through the fallopian tubes, and the grand finale, that all goes down in the uterus. These three spots, that's where all the action is. So you might be wondering, who's the conductor of this whole symphony? Well, it turns out the command center is actually the brain. So let's meet the master controllers that kick this entire process into gear. Yeah, it's a super clear chain of command. It all starts up in the hypothalamus, which sends out a signal called GnRH. Think of it like a text message. That message goes to the pituitary gland, telling it to release two really important hormones, FSH and LH. Then those hormones travel down to the ovaries and give them their marching orders. Hey, start making estrogen and progesterone. It's a total top-down system, all starting in the brain. And this diagram, it just shows that command structure perfectly. But here's the cool part. It is not a one-way street. It's more like a constant conversation. The brain tells the ovaries what to do, sure, but then the hormones the ovaries make talk back to the brain, telling it to either speed up or hit the brakes. This whole feedback loop is absolutely crucial for keeping the entire cycle running smoothly. All right, let's get into the first half of the cycle. The best way to think about this part is as the big prep phase. The body is basically getting everything set up and ready for one single critical event. So, our journey officially begins deep inside the ovary. See these little sacs? They're called follicles. And thanks to that FSH hormone we just talked about, one of these follicles gets the signal it's chosen to start maturing. It's getting ready to release the egg that's tucked away inside. And this whole maturation thing, it happens in stages. It starts out as this tiny, dormant primordial follicle. Then it grows into a primary follicle, then a vesicular one, until finally, bam, it becomes this fully mature, fluid-filled structure called the Graafian follicle. It's now officially ready for the main event. Now, while this follicle is growing, it's not just sitting there, no way. It is actively pumping out estrogen. And as that estrogen level rises, it sends a crucial message over to the uterus. The message is simple: hey, start building up a nice, thick, nutrient-rich lining. That lining is called the endometrium. The body is literally preparing a cozy home, just in case. And this side-by-side view shows that cause and effect perfectly. On the left, you see that sharp spike in estrogen over the first 14 days or so. And on the right, that's the direct result. The uterine lining, the endometrium, thickens right on cue. It's a classic case of one thing directly causing another. Okay, so all of this prep work we've been talking about, the rising hormones, that growing follicle, the thickening uterus, it has all been leading up to this. The one moment the whole first half of the cycle is built around, the main event. Right around day 14 in a typical cycle, something really dramatic happens. That super high level of estrogen we saw, it acts like a switch, triggering a massive sudden surge of another hormone from the pituitary, luteinizing hormone, or LH. And that LH surge, that's the final trigger. And what does that trigger do? It leads to this: ovulation. This is it. This is the moment that mature follicle literally bursts open and releases the ovum, our main character, from the ovary. And here we have a visual of that absolutely incredible moment. The follicle wall just ruptures, and the egg is set free. It's now officially out of the ovary and ready to start its big journey towards the uterus. Its immediate path is actually kind of wild. First, it gets expelled just out into the general abdominal cavity. From there, it gets swept up into the opening of the nearby fallopian tube. That tube is going to be its highway for the next stage of the adventure. So, with our ovum on its way, the cycle now enters its second half. You'll often hear this called the 2-week wait, and for good reason. The body is basically just waiting to see if fertilization is going to happen. Meanwhile, back in the ovary, the story isn't over. That empty follicle, the one that just released the egg, it transforms into a brand new structure called the corpus luteum. The best way to think of this thing is as a temporary hormone factory. Its one and only job is to pump out progesterone, and that progesterone is what keeps that lush uterine lining healthy and stable. At the same time, our little ovum is making its trek down the fallopian tube. But here's the thing, it's on a very tight schedule. It only has a tiny window of opportunity. We're talking just 12 to 24 hours after ovulation, where it can actually be fertilized by sperm. And this brings us to a huge fork in the road. What happens next depends completely on one thing, and one thing only. Does fertilization happen or not? The body, by the way, is ready for either scenario. So let's look at the two possible fates of that corpus luteum. Path 1, the egg gets fertilized. If that happens, a brand new hormone called HCG shows up and tells the corpus luteum, hey, stick around, keep making that progesterone. This is what sustains an early pregnancy. But what about path 2? If there's no fertilization, the corpus luteum just gives up. It degenerates. All those hormone levels just plummet, and that's the signal to start the whole cycle over again. And that dramatic, sudden drop in estrogen and progesterone, that is the direct trigger for menstruation. See, without those hormones propping it up, that thick uterine lining just can't sustain itself. It breaks down and is shed. This bleeding marks the end of one cycle, and just as importantly, it marks day one of the brand new cycle. Now, those plunging hormone levels, they're also the culprit behind what many people experience as premenstrual syndrome or PMS. It makes sense when you think about it. These hormones don't just affect the uterus, they also influence your brain chemistry. So when they take a nosedive, that dramatic shift can cause all sorts of physical and emotional symptoms. Things like cramping, bloating, mood swings, you name it. So when you step back and look at the whole thing, from the brain to the ovaries, all the way to the uterus, this cycle is just a beautifully complex and perfectly coordinated process, repeating itself month after month. It's truly a fundamental rhythm of life. But it does leave us with one final big question. This intricate biological clock is designed to run for a finite amount of time.